Welcome back to U.S. Farm Report. Trusted, timely, tradition.
Grit with Grace is brought to you by Zoetis. Your dedication runs deep, and it fuels everything Zoetis does. To protect and support cattle and those who care for them, we are born of the bond. Learn more at bornofthebond.com.
Well, drought and heat in the West are fueling historic wildfires. The blazes across the West are breaking records this year, and in the worst way. Currently, a large fire called the Dixie Fire, which is now considered one of the most destructive in California history. Well, that fire forcing evacuations in Butte County, California this week, a county ravaged by wildfires just last year. And this week, it's one rancher who's making it his mission now to spark change. Surrounded by cattle in silence, Dave Daley's serene setting is now scattered with scars.
It's really hard for me to go back and see it because there's so much history.
As the California cattle rancher strolls this land in the Golden State, some of it has been ranched by his family for 6 generations.
I consider myself an environmentalist. It doesn't have to be an either or. I love the wildlands. I miss it. I go up there and it's devastating.
The devastation of which he's reminded daily with barren land and charred trees. Devastation painted for miles in Butte County, California.
I think the scope of fires anymore, they're all devastating in different places in different ways.
The worst for Daley is the way he lost his cows. Some burned alive in a desperate search for water and survival. Others with calves still inside, unable to be saved. Images etched in Daley's memory.
The scope of the August complex and the Bear Fire, as it began to explode, it obviously destroyed our cow herd.
What started as a small fire on August 17, 2020, reached the Plumas National Forest where Dave's 400 head of cattle were grazing on September 8th, and the majority of those cows never made it out.
They died tragic deaths. So, on fire, running away and dying, collapsing wherever they were.
Nearly a year later, Daley can't hide his emotions. As he says, the days the fire raced across a nearby forest were bottled up in sadness, grief, and then anger.
And there's times I feel worse for the cattle that we lost. And clearly it's a huge economic impact, right? That's devastating.
Yet other times it's thinking about the future that ignites frustration and grief.
My granddaughter will never see that forest again, the way it was. No, neither will anyone else. Not in my lifetime. And people, I've talked with people all over the country. They say, well, isn't it going to, it'll look good the next year the grass has come back. It's until you've seen it, they don't get the scope. They don't get the disaster that occurred and how massive it is. And when you kill 150-year-old trees, we aren't going to see it ever again.
A month after the flames subsided and only ashes were left, Daley knew there was only one option left.
It's been a month. We've dealt with this every day. Lots of times 18 to 20 hours a day, and then all night when you aren't sleeping. So I know one thing, we're going to come back. I'm not sure there's other options. And I also, I really believe in the resilience of what we do.
The fire didn't just torch Daley's livelihood. His family has ranched this area since the 1800s. And out of all the families who ranched this land, the Daleys are the only ones left.
There were about 50 ranchers. We're the last of those 50 ranchers. I know all their names, all their history. They've all disappeared due to regulation, economy, politics. None of them are in business up here anymore. We've survived that long.
Survival is something it seems is ingrained in Daley, even as he battled the sorrow of losing his herd and decades of work.
A part of the challenge is the cattle have to be adapted to the mountain range, to the climate. So it's not like we can go buy 400 cows, which is essentially what we lost, and take them up there and turn them loose. They wouldn't do well. They wouldn't know where to go.
Immediately, Daley searched for changes to raising cattle in this area, all of which came at a cost.
We've had to make some really dramatic adjustments. Not having a place to take those cows this summer. We're actually feeding some cows in the summer, which I've never done in my 63 years of existence. So that's expensive, but you don't want to lose your genetic base.
Some changes temporary, others may be permanent, as grazing 400 cows on what was once luscious land is something Daley doesn't know if they'll ever be able to do again.
It's one that you think about at night a lot.
The scars of this one fire Daley fears will last for generations.
I don't think people recognize the intensity of the fire. I've been up there and it's not there.
And he says in a year or two, grass may start to grow back, but even then, cattle living off the land will be a stretch.
You know, credit to the United States Forest Service and Sierra Pacific. They both said that we could take some cattle this year if we chose to, and we wanted to. It's the first break since, as I said, 1880s. My mom's 90. I wanted to take cows up for her. There was nothing to go to.
With fewer cows to feed, his sorrow has turned into passion.
I've made a commitment that it's what I need to do. And frankly, I don't have as many cows to take care of right now, so I'm doing it. I'm putting everything I can into it.
Fighting to save what's left, using his voice to create change.
Well, I've basically made a commitment that this is really important to me right now.
From various leadership roles to testifying on Capitol Hill, Daley is making known the impact of California's wildfires that have ravaged millions of acres.
But when it's starting to destroy their homes and they can't get insurance, and it's starting to burn towns like Paradise in the Camp Fire or Berry Creek in this fire, then they start paying attention.
Daley wants that attention to turn to a solution, as he says pinpointing the cause creates a bigger divide.
People who don't know want to spend time arguing about what caused it, right? You know, it's climate change, let's fix it. It's we didn't rake the floor enough, let's fix it. I'm really tired of people because they really aren't close enough to understand what truly happens.
With 3 kids involved in the ranch in various ways today, Daley's fight for change is selfless.
Everybody thinks the glamour piece, I'm on horseback gathering cows, they forget fixing fence, right? Or hauling hay, or whatever it happens to be. And so you have to really be born into it and care for it. I know all 3 of my kids do. They're there, they got it. It's deep in their soul. You can feel it when you talk to them.
Adaptable and resilient. He says that's how he and other area ranchers continue to survive, even as he searches for the path to rebuild and for the Daley's ranching legacy to stay intact.
I don't know exactly what that path will be, but I'm not quitting. Neither is my kids. You know, we're just gonna keep going.
Now, Daley says the cause of the influx of wildfires across the West is actually a moot point, and pinpointing that cause is often what garners extreme views, and that creates even more of a divide. He says instead, the only thing that needs to be a focus now is finding a solution to stop the spread of the deadly blazes in the West. Well, up next, our marketing roundtables pick back up. U.S. Farm Report continues in just 2 minutes.
Over 10,000 years ago, mankind first domesticated cattle. At this exact same time, cattle domesticated us. Our 2 species have worked together and taken care of each other for centuries. Zoetis is today's advanced answer to that ancient bond. We help make it stronger, healthier, more robust. We are born of the bond.